Hey guys. So I want to address a very important topic, and one that comes up quite a lot for people at all levels really, beginner right through intermediate, which is the question of when to attack. I think the middle game tends to pose people a lot more issues. They kind of learn an opening, learn a system, and then we get into the middle game and you go kind of, now what? How do we progress from here? And knowing when it's time to attack, not attacking too early, but also not missing opportunities to attack is very, very important. So I played a blitz game this morning that I thought was quite instructive in that sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the game. I think I won on time in the end. Just spoiler alert. You're supposed to say spoiler alert before you give the spoiler, but there you go. It's first thing in the morning. What can you do? So yeah, I won on time, but and I think I played 2 blunders in it, but I haven't gone through in great detail. So we're going to look at the game. We're going to be thinking specifically about the timing of attack. When is it the right time to go in, and how much should you prepare before an attack? And then we'll look at the analysis as well afterwards. Okay, so we have the Alekhine defense. Alekhine's defense. Alekhine is the English pronunciation, but in Russian I think it's Alekhine. So e4, knight f6. Now black's idea here. Now it has to be said, this is an awkward ass opening. It really is, and it scores well at every level. It really does. So if you want to be annoying son of a bitch, then go, this is a perfectly good opening. Now, the idea with this, the general idea, is that black is trying to tempt white into overextending in the center before he's developed. Okay, so he'd do this, knight can move there, you might kick the knight again with c4, knight ends up here, they play d4, they might play f4, the other knight comes out, so black ends up with like these awkward looking knights. But then white's got this kind of massive centre of pawns that the idea is that black will then be able to, like maybe fianchetto the bishop and castle and attack this overextended centre at his leisure and pick off these pawns later on. So that's a general idea, as I understand it, of Alekhine's, but I don't play this. I do like to be annoying, but not that annoying. Anyway. So, what do you do in a situation like this? Well, this is not to do with attacking, but one general idea is, well, how could I possibly steer this opening into something that I recognise and understand better? Okay, so what did I play? I play knight to c3. And now, look, we have almost a Vienna. I'm just waiting for this pawn to come out, right? Does the pawn come out? No, the pawn does not come out. So, what do? Pawn to f4, right? Now, if black now plays e5, I know exactly where I am. Black plays e5, right? This is the Vienna Gambit declined with knight c6, okay? And I know that this is a happy hunting ground. I know exactly where I am now. Black is an Alekhine's player. He didn't have a clue. He doesn't know what he's doing. Right now. So I take the pawn. He takes the pawn. And I go, thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you for the centre. Right? Doesn't matter where the knight goes. Knight might come here. Knight might come here. That's less likely, I guess. But it's a possibility. But then you can just kick it again. So knight goes there, I push e5, you always push e5, knight retreats, and I have a nice centre. Yeah, arguably slightly overextended there, but hey-ho, I'm ready to develop. Now, obviously the queen can come out here, so you have to play knight f3. Bishop comes out, whatever. Bishop c4. Okay, I'm eyeing up f7. Why f7? Well, there's many good reasons. One is, at the start of the game, the f-pawns are defended only by the kings. So the f-pawn is always an Achilles heel for both players. Another thing is that because I have no f-pawn of my own, The F file is now semi-open. The only pawns on that file are black, and I can take black pawns. I can't take white pawns. They are an obstruction. So effectively, if I can get a rook on here, that's almost like an open file, right? And rooks love open files. So black here plays knight b to e7, preparing to castle himself. So this knight has now taken quite an interesting route round, has he not? Been jumping all over the board. In fact, this knight that's come to here. This knight has come that back and there, right? So he's got quite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knight moves in the first 8 moves. However, he does have 3 pieces kind of developed. Okay, so castles and castles. And I believe here that actually, on my part, castles was not accurate. I think that the computer, from my quick look at the analysis, wanted me to go in with this knight, right? And this is a key thing. This is not a game-winning attacking idea, right? The point is that I can already exert hypo pressure on the f7 pawn, which is defended only by the king, right? So if I go in with the knight now, what's he going to do? Probably castle? I don't know. But we'll have a look at that. So this is not a winning attack. You're not going to beat your opponent. I mean, yes, there are ways. You can checkmate your opponent with a bishop and a knight if there are pawns in the way and his king's got relatively few squares. But it's not an easy thing to do. It's relatively rare patterns. However, I think the idea of knight in here is enough to give black a bloody nose, enough to mess up black's structure, and it's worth the time cost, right? It's worth taking a detour and hitting pause button on development and king safety and stuff like that because we are that far ahead. I think that's the idea. Anyway, so I castle, he castles. I bring out my dark squared bishop, and according to the report, this move is a blunder. Apparently, after playing this move, my advantage, which was significant, was shot, and again, it wanted me to play knight to g5. Now, I don't understand the reasoning behind that, but we will look at it. Okay, but I play bishop g5, which apparently just completely levels the game. Interestingly, okay. So the question is, should I have already been attacking? I don't know. Or was my attack just too weak? So I think very often we can get swayed by principles. So principles being, I need to get my minor pieces off the back rank. Maybe bishop d2 would have been better, I don't know, right? Get the queen off and then attack, right? Generally correct. But apparently this was the wrong way to go about it. Black kicks my bishop. I'm happy to see this. I'm happy to see h6, right? It's creating weaknesses, but more than anything else, I can see myself sacking the bishop and capturing this pawn. This pawn can now only be recaptured by the g pawn. So if I can get a queen or a rook somewhere on this g file, maybe a possibility. So I drop the bishop back to d2. So now if he wants to take my knight, I could take that with the bishop, might not. We have d5 from black. There is the option of captures en passant here, but I figure that bishop back to d3 is absolutely fine. I'm going to maintain this centre, maintain this control over these squares. No real argument, no real reason to give that up. I'm attacking this knight. Yes, it's defended by its partner. Okay, we have bishop g4 pinning my knight. This is really quite toothless in these Vienna Gambit lines when you've got your rook on there. The rook's defending the knight. My queen is not constrained at all, and in fact a very common idea for me is to bring my queen round to the g3 square. Okay, here I play queen c1 because I have a different idea. My idea here is in some way to sack the bishop, pawn takes, queen takes. Okay, so I've got 2 pawns for my bishop. Notice that my bishop is somewhat constrained in movement by this kind of mini blockage in the middle of the board. It's not a bad bishop, but it's not a fantastic one. This bishop's also good, right? But these pawns here are valuable pawns. They're important pawns. They're the ones right in front of my opponent's king, and I want to prove that h6 was inaccurate. Okay, so my idea is sack takes, queen takes. I've got 2 pawns for the bishop. Knight comes in. There's no way of stopping checkmate. That's the general idea, right? With a following wind and blue skies. Right, this knight now pivots away to here, kind of targeting this pawn, which is defended, but by a piece that is both pinned, well, no longer pinned, but is under attack. So does black intend to capture my knight? I can recapture maybe with a rook, and then win a pawn. And I see this and I think, bring it. You know, I'm not interested. What I'm interested in is attacking. And now I pull the trigger. And the question is this the correct time, okay, for bishop takes h6 check, right? We have gh6, queen h6. So the point is, like, if you go back, right, to here, now that this knight, this knight is undefended, so this knight's now defended only by the f-pawn, do we have enough stuff? So somebody mentioned in a comment the other time that like Gotham Chess and others have talked about this idea of a rule of +2. You want 2 more attackers lined up against your opponent than you have defenders. Now, arguably here we've got bishop, queen, and knight ready to come in, right? Defenders, arguably only 1. So do we meet that rule? I don't know. Well, let's see how it goes. Takes, takes, takes. And now I have a bishop looking down at this knight, right? It's defended only by this pawn. So ideas like takes, if pawn takes, captures, and I have a fork on king and bishop, which is undefended. Happy days. They take my knight. Now I've got options here. I could take that with a pawn, which you might argue kind of exposes my king. I can take that with the rook. There's no rook to capture, so obviously rook. Right? I want to bring my rook over here or over here. Either pin the knight or try and support checkmating idea from the queen. He lifts his queen, and now rook straight to h3. And how does he stop mate? Pause if you need. I looked at this for a while and I figured there was only one solution for black. And the only solution that I found, which is what he found, is rook e8. All he could do was to create an escape square. So the queen can't come to h8 with mate because of the knight. This is the problem. Now I could maybe takes, takes, and then queen h8. But then the king has this square as well. So anyway, so that's actually what I do. I take out the knight. I capture with the queen. Now he can here block with the queen. He does. I trade queens because I figure that although I don't have a material advantage now, well, I am about to in a second, aren't I? Because there's a free pawn, bang. Okay, I have a nice advantage in the fact that I've got a nice dark square pawn chain, effectively shutting this bishop out of the game, right? And my king has relative safety, whereas his king is, I mean, after rook f1 is about to get imprisoned, okay? So he withdraws his bishop, I play c3. So here I think is maybe another interesting point, because now I decide to go after the bishop, right, with the idea of a4, b4, a5, and try and trap it. But is that the right thing to do? Is this bishop causing any... I mean, I could eliminate the bishop if I want, but it's weak. It's currently imprisoned. Right, my knight is actually much better positioned on a relatively safe square. It's on a light square. Maybe I should have been going after the king now, but I decide to push a4. And now he sacks a rook. Now, key point. He appears to sack a rook, but I can't capture the rook. The reason I can't capture the rook is because this pawn here is pinned by the bishop, right? But my opponent has made a serious error here. Pause if you need. What is the error? Okay, so this takes me, so I stop here for 20 seconds, right? But I've got 2 minutes 20. My opponent's on 1 minute 11 here. yes, it's true, I can't take the rook right now. Why can't I take the rook? Because of this bishop is pinning this pawn on this king. Okay. But I'm attacking the bishop, and what's more, you have to think continuation. If I take the bishop, what's the situation? Okay, I'm also attacking this rook, and I've got a pawn attacking this rook, so my opponent is going to lose a rook. Okay, takes, and then I take this rook, and the rest of the game is relatively straightforward. And I think it ends on time anyway, so that's not the point. The point is the timing of attacks. So we're going to flip over now to the analysis board, to the game review. 72 from me, 65 from black, and 2 blunders each, right? No missed wins. Okay, so let's go through. Book move, happy to see that. Book move, f4 is good, d4 is best. So d4 here, I guess, yeah, it's defended, right? But I'm trying to steer it towards Austria. e5 is a mistake, we know this, right? Because now I'm in a position that I know. It appears to be defended, but in fact, takes, and you have problems. Now d4, and now I'm plus 1.5. Knight goes back, that's the best move, I know it is. That's the best move, I know it is, because you have to prevent the queen. Okay, but this is not what concerns us, dude. Okay, bishop out here is good, queen e2. And the point of this as well, guys, is not just the topic that we're talking about the timing of attacks. The point of this is that any game that you play, it could be a 5-minute game, doesn't matter, right? Any game that you play can be full of lessons. So, for example, why queen e2? I mean, actually, do you know what? It's marginal. It's 1.62 to 1.69. So we can ignore that. It's a fine move, but so's that one. Okay, so knight b to e7 is a blunder. He should have played d5 here. And now, castles is good, but here knight g5 is best. So you remember, we talked about this. So here, knight to g5 is best. Now, I suffer from this thing where the first four, the top 4 rows just kind of disappear, right? And I'm only looking at ranks 1, 2, 3, 4, which is very common in the opening. Now, the point is, according to Stockfish, that that here, yeah, castles is 4.5, right? Knight to g5 is nearly 5. So again, it's half a pawn. You can ignore half a pawn. Okay, generally. But why? So why this now? Why knight to here? That's the point. So I'm immediately putting pressure on f7. I'm threatening, for example, bishop takes f7. With check, king has to move, right? King moves to there, say. Then I just move my bishop back, say b3. Or I'd be threatening knight there. Oh, and the king can't take and the queen can't move. That's even worse. Okay, so if I go here, how does he stop this? Well, he's got to interrupt the bishop's sight of there now. So he has to play d5, okay. But then I have e takes d6, right. So then I have the en passant capture. And I guess queen takes, yeah, queen takes is best. But then I have knight takes with a 4. So I didn't even look at that. This is the point. This is the point here, right? So from here, this is a blunder because it allows this, right? So if he had played this move here, and, you know, I capture en passant and whatever, then he can capture with, well, he can capture with the bishop, he can capture with the c-pawn as well, he can capture with the queen, and either way, so let's say bishop takes, either way, knight here is suddenly not so much of a threat, okay? You can go queen e7 according to the machine with check and stuff like that. So I missed this, I missed the whole thing, because I was only looking at my side of the board. I was only looking at a building and attack in the middle game. Whereas there was actually an early foray that I could have executed in the opening, right? But I missed it. So let's move on a bit. And now this is the really interesting one for me. Bishop g5 is a blunder. Knight g5 was +6, okay? Equal material +6. That's basically a winning move. So what you have to say to yourself is, first of all, why is the move that I missed better? But the key thing is, what is it in my thought process that meant that I missed that idea? Right. So we'll start with what was I thinking? I was thinking develop, pin this knight, can't be a bad thing. But what I missed was that I have the option of knight here. I have queen h5 with an immediate checkmate threat, I guess is the point. So let's look at here, knight to there. Right, so the threat is going to be queen here. Now I'm trying not to look at the fish right now. Remember, this pawn is pinned as well by this bishop. It's an absolute pin, so can't move. So now it's saying d5 has to be played. But still I'm winning after that. Okay, so let's say we'll follow the computer line and then captures en passant. Queen takes here. Is it queen h5? Oh, no, it's going after f7. The pinned f7 with 3 pieces. Wow, so it's saying knight takes f7 and rook takes f7. Yeah, it's... Yeah, so it's saying between rook takes f7 as the best move here. I'm attacking the queen, right, or queen b6. Queen b6 here. So if rook takes f7, hang on. Now it's saying rook takes f7 was the better move. Rook takes f7. And now bishop takes. And you can see black's position. I mean, I'm 1 pawn up, but I'm 6.5 pawn equivalents in front. King h8. And then knight c2 e4. Bringing my knights in as a team, defending everything. Or even bishop b3. Now it's saying bishop b3, just drop back. Ooh, bishop b3 then leaves the option of this royal fork as well. So that is fascinating. So after he castles, right, because this is the other thing, right? My knight is blocking f3. So after this move, I have 1, 2, 3 pieces looking at that key pawn, which is also pinned. So 1, 2, 3, right, against the pawn that's really only defended twice. That was the time to go in and at least draw blood, at least weaken my opponent and leave him wounded, right? It's not necessarily a winning attack, but you never know, it could have led on to one. Depends on how my opponent plays as well. But I did not do that, right? So in fact, it's saying even here, knight d5 here is the best move already, and that's only with 2 attackers on there before even castling. But castling was fine as well. But here is where I should have gone in. I didn't. I basically lost my whole advantage there. It's saying that now bishop should take here, eliminate this knight. This is a mistake. I'm pleased to see that because that felt like, oh, that's all right, I can live with that. And here, now it's saying knight d5. Oh, wow. So, yes, with bringing the bishop out to here, yes, it was called a blunder, right? Of course, this pawn can't move and kick the bishop. But here it's saying knight to here. Let's look at this. Knight d5 can't be taken. I'm attacking this bishop. Yeah, I stuck a knight in the centre of the board, remember? Which is a nice thing. Does temporarily unpin this pawn. Now it's saying best moves are b5, a5 and c6 here. So let's say b5 is the top move. Bishop to d3. Giving up my bishop potentially here. Let's say they take the bishop. Knight takes g5. And now, again, I'm threatening this. Knight takes d5, giving up a piece. Queen h5. And unless my opponent captures the knight there, I've got forced mate. So my opponent now is forced to give up his queen. Anything else, let's say like rook e8 is the third move, queen h7 check, king f8. Oh, beautiful. And this is what we missed, right? From bishop g5. So pawn here, knight in here is the other key idea. You see how we get into these automatic things where you go, oh no, my bishop, I must move my bishop. Well, not necessarily. Because actually this pawn takes, knight take, you get the knight, the key piece onto that controlling square, then the queen coming in with an unstoppable attack, thanks to the knight on there also looking at f7. So then the question is, well, what is it in my thought process that I missed? Why did I not spot that? And I think part of it is because I'm playing bloody 5-minute blitz. So you don't think you think you've got like 15 seconds to think of a move. Right, that would have taken me longer to figure out. But the point is here. So what I didn't see about this was, this knight is pinned, this pawn is pinned. I'd love to get my knight on there so that my queen in there. I mean, that I knew. I had that part of it figured out. But this, and he takes, and I take, right? He takes me again. I don't even recapture, I go straight in. Queen h5. And then he is forced to give up his queen. It's the only way to save the king. Okay? If he doesn't, or let's say anything else, like queen here, right? Then it's a straight checkmate. Yeah, he has to move the rook. He has to move the rook, and that kind of undefends this, which is attacked twice. Not by the bishop. The bishop's currently blocked, but oh, lovely, lovely finish. You know, and when you see really, really strong players finding sequences like that, is it beyond you and me to do that? I don't know if it is. I think big part of it is laziness, and another big part of it is being too hung up on principles, so that we forget to expand our thinking and to look at what else may be possible on the board. I had some of the pieces of the puzzle already figured out. I knew generally what I wanted to do, but when it came to it, I don't know. You know, it's just getting hung up on these things, right? He kicks my bishop. And what I don't realise is he can take it. I recapture with a knight, and I'm going to win. So. Try and absorb that new wisdom, and hopefully be a bit stronger next time. Because I tell you what, this is not an uncommon position for me to see on the board. Probably similar for you as well. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. is this something that you struggle with, this kind of timing of when to attack? Because my concern was, well, maybe my attack was premature in this game, but according to the machine, I actually had even earlier opportunities to gain an advantage over my opponent, which I didn't even consider. So fascinating stuff. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See you later.